Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grid Sisters podcast. My name is Lauren.
My name is Tess.
And we're the Grid Sisters.
Yeah.
Okay, jumping right into it.
We got a lot to talk about.
This week was nuts. Melbourne was a crazy race. It was all crazy. To save you and us time, race weekend recap, we're jumping right in. We are not gonna keep going over FP1, 2, and 3 because honestly, just go watch the highlights on YouTube if you're curious what happened there. There were a lot of spin-offs. Drivers looked like they had some issues with grip and the track, and that's pretty much how we would kind of sum it up.
We know for sure that, and this obviously plays into what happens in the race and quali, but we know for sure Checo was having a lot of problems with his car this weekend during practice. That led to him not even getting a lap in Q1.
Jumping right into qualifying, we did have Checo out.
Right away.
Flagging the session. Yeah, right away. Same corner he had an issue with in practice. He said over the radio, guys, we got to fix this.
Yeah, the problem is still there.
Super rough. Super rough weekend for Checo in that regard. And then we also had a horrible weekend for Bottas.
Yeah, I don't
Even
know
race pace wise, that Alfa Romeo was not looking sharp. Like Bottas was struggling, and we know Bottas is a good driver, so that's where it's kind of one of those what in the world is going on here.
This might be a chaotic episode. That kind of brings me to first race of the season, Bahrain. We had a lot of conversations about like, wow, actually the Alfa Romeos might be looking good.
Yeah,
but Mercedes looks horrible in Bahrain.
Oh yeah,
Mercedes had a good weekend, Alfa Romeo's not. So this is one of those things like what we were talking about.
Is this going to be one of those where
track by track, like disaster?
Like the McLaren car seems to love Monza, but hates everywhere else. So
we'll get to McLaren. We'll get there.
Okay. Now,
but yeah. So Bottas, rough weekend. Joe had like some good moments in the actual race.
Yes. I think Joe performed well. Joe did out-qualify Bottas, but they still were both out in Q3. Gasly had a great qualifying Q1 session. Q1. Sorry. Gasly had a great qualifying session.
Yeah, sorry.
Who else qualified really well? Lando qualified well.
Yes. Lando got into Q2.
Yes. Logan Sargent did not qualify well. Neither did Oscar Piastri. I don't think he made it out of Q1 either.
I don't think so.
Unfortunate for his hometown race. Alex Albon. Unfortunate what happened to him, and we'll get to that. But Alex Albon effing killed it.
Alex Albon is my man.
Honestly,
love him.
Love that guy.
Love Alex.
Alex did an amazing, amazing job.
We're Bleach Bestie twins. And seriously, he's been killing it. I feel like, obviously, he's driving a Williams, which you never really know what's going to happen with Williams.
Right.
Because it's a Williams.
But they do look like they are improving.
Exactly. I think that this could be an amazing year for Alex. Okay. Alex might be having a better year than all of Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. He did better than both the Ferraris.
Yeah. Until
he didn't.
That does take us a little bit back to practice where Alex was having issues with that exact same turn. The gravel trap caught people out this weekend with the good old-fashioned gravel trap. I actually don't mind them. I enjoy them. I like that it punishes you for the mistakes that you make, but it's unfortunate.
It's inescapable.
Yeah.
Yes. Where I think that it also does kind of lead to the issue that caused the red flag where the gravel spray can get a little out of hand.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to clear.
There's also a lot of debris that happens in that area if you do hit the barrier.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that we saw as the biggest issue this weekend. Another thing to kind of point out with that, the FIA, I believe, was trialing a 4 DRS zone. Strategy.
Yes.
Or not strategy, layout for Albert Park this weekend. And that was actually really awesome. I feel like we saw a lot of really great overtakes and really great battles.
So many good battles because of the amount DRS, like overtaking that could happen because of the like abundance of DRS time.
Yes.
Because that's the thing is the DRS zones, when there aren't as many, they almost take away from the race in some ways,
Yeah, and
because
that's
it's
where I
like,
feel like you
this
get
is the
those
only place
DRS
that it's
trains.
like DRS train, and that's the only place that anyone's gonna pass, and like, oops, that sucks. Where like it makes it so entertaining because Lewis and Alonso had such an interesting race.
Watching those two play chess
Mhm.
in their car in
Mhm.
the middle of the race was
Even like
so great.
like Lando defending against Checo,
Yeah.
and like Lando making passes. It was amazing to watch the DRS. I feel like it was really, really, really effective in this race.
I agree. And it's unfortunate because they were talking about it a lot. That McLaren looks really draggy. And what that means is it's just even the DRS, not enough drag reduction. They are still slower.
There are a couple cars they were talking about were really looking draggy, like the McLarens. Even the Aston Martins looked really draggy.
The Aston Martins had
Even
higher downforce, yeah, I think.
they have a lot more speed than the McLaren and a
Agreed.
lot more working for them, but they're definitely draggy in comparison. So what I think that is going to be the craziest thing to see is continually like, what is Red Bull doing? Why is it working so
Because
well?
the one thing we have to say is Red Bull's DRS.
It's
It
like
seems
magical.
like they are getting. It seems like they are getting like 5 extra kilometers per hour over everybody else's DRS.
So like
advantage.
DRS already gives you what, like an 11?
I think it's between 17 and 11 kilometers per hour depending on the area and the car.
Of like advantage over the person in front of you that you have DRS on. And then it feels like it feels like if everyone else has 11, Red Bull has 17.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you know what? That is one of the areas that I love so much about Formula One, because this is where the little technicalities and the little like technological advancements come to light.
So this is like the thing that Toto was saying, where Toto was like, you know what, we really have to give it to them because they got it right. Like it's as simple as that, is whatever they did, they got it right. They engineered it to the point where it is beautiful, and they deserve to be winning because they got it right.
It's Adrian Newey.
I think so.
He designed that car, and honestly, everyone who drives one of his designed cars says one of the best cars I've ever driven for the most part. Except Fernando Alonso loves his Aston Martin, but
so obviously we'll keep getting back to small points. We'll keep getting back to like small points and stuff of the race, but it's more like I just have like really random things that are about the race, but not like actual things that happen in the race.
Same.
Anyways, Mercedes, they all were like, not sure what's happening this weekend because we didn't really bring upgrades. We don't know what's happening that is good.
Actually, something with that, Red Bull had upgrades, but there were no upgrades on the Ferrari or the Mercedes. And the Mercedes seemed right. I don't know if they just found a good tune. I don't know if they just found the right settings.
George was joking, I think, that it's whatever jet lag system they were running, like for them. Like they're like, oh, it's whatever jet lag like thing we're doing. And I'm like, okay, hilarious, but what is happening? Why is your car working well?
Hang on. Sidebar really fast. We have 2 moments on the jet lag thing. First of all, Carlos Sainz's Instagram stories where he's talking us through his jet lag routine. That was golden. First of all, it seems slightly unhinged, but in like the best way. Like I didn't expect it from Carlos, but I loved it.
It's almost like he was like, no, guys, I promise I know what the people want to see. Like the people who like
he like tells his Instagram admin, he's like, no. This is what people want to see.
Or they were like, here, you can have the login like while you're on the flight. Like he's like, like this is what I do for my jet lag. And they're like, whoa.
And then
we're taking your Instagram away.
And then one more thing, and I saw this on, I think it was LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn person. If you don't use LinkedIn or you don't follow F1 teams on LinkedIn, you definitely should, because they actually release a ton of information there that they don't release anywhere else. So it's really a great place to kind of get a lot of info on different F1 teams.
Wait, really quick, even crazier side note that has nothing to do with literally anything. I'm drinking out of a disco ball cup right now. So you should go watch the video format of this episode because I'm drinking out of a disco ball cup.
And it is water.
And it's just water, but I'm drinking out of a disco ball cup. Okay. So it's from Target. Just saying.
In the dollar section.
I'm just saying that I looked at myself and I was like, I forgot I was drinking out of this. This is kind of fun. Anyways, back to LinkedIn.
Okay. So, saw this on LinkedIn. Did you know that they bring the drivers mattresses?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
According to the video that I watched on LinkedIn, this was in the Mercedes garage. They said, we do everything we can, including bringing the drivers mattresses.
Like from home.
Yeah.
Like for them to sleep on,
I mean,
like
I don't
at a
know, like
hotel.
from their, yeah.
Like they have the same kind of mattress that they sleep on at home. They like have a mattress that they travel with.
I'm assuming, yeah.
What in the what?
It's giving, okay, this is going to be a really niche thing, but it's giving, the game plan with
Yes.
The Rock and Madison Pettis, where he goes, this is my custom designed $12,000 bed.
Yes. 100%.
It's giving that energy.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm curious. I don't know if every team does this, but I believe it was Mercedes. And it was literally in the garage, posted by their team, by their admin.
Listen, if no one else does it, and
it seemed to work.
If no one else does it and Mercedes does it, that checks out.
That is facts.
That checks out for me.
That is facts. There's perks to driving for Mercedes. Apparently, you get your mattress on long road trips.
So this is one of those things where like I think about the difference in like vibe between Mercedes and Red Bull, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like Red Bull would like bring their mattresses. Not that like they wouldn't do that. It just doesn't seem like the drivers would be like, yeah, let's bring our mattresses. But because Lewis and George are like so British, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like they're very like Mercedes gives like high class.
It does.
And so then it's like, oh, we'll like bring our mattresses so that we all sleep so plush and it's exactly how we, where like Red Bull's kind of like, yeah, let's go. I feel like Max just like plays video games and before he races and whatever. And I don't know what Checo does, but I just mean like I can't imagine them bringing mattresses.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of questions.
That feels like a strictly Mercedes thing. Not that the other teams wouldn't. It feels very Mercedes.
It does. Anyways, I have questions, and if I ever get a hold of them, I'm asking. But anyways, from there, Mercedes looked like less of a shitbox this weekend. And you know what? Let's rephrase that. The past two races have been rough. But I don't think, and even Toto said, yeah, we didn't get it right as well as Red Bull did. But our car isn't crap. We need to figure out how to make it work.
So, exactly. And I think that they've pointed out a lot of things that Lewis has said that are very specific about things he doesn't like. He doesn't like where he sits in the car. He doesn't like specific things about the way that the rear drives of this car. It's crazy that it is so different from last year, yet still also wrong. I don't understand. But I keep thinking, do they ever catch up in this era? Because
I don't
Red Bull keeps getting it right and then more right and then more right, where Mercedes isn't going even remotely the same direction as Red Bull.
No.
And do they ever like catch up and get an upper hand because they're doing something different? I don't know. Also, like, what the fudge sickles is Ferrari doing?
I don't know. I don't.
Why does their car not even look that good anymore? It looks kind of slow.
Like, what happened to Ferrari?
It looks kind of slow.
It does. It looks slow. It doesn't look like it's handling
like
well.
The Aston Martin is significantly better than the Ferrari.
Yes.
How?
I don't know.
Like, what happened?
Like, Stroll and Sainz had a great battle.
Exactly.
And that's Lance Stroll.
In an Aston Martin. So, that's the tea right now.
That's a tea.
The tea right now is that Ferrari is just...
Couple other little housekeeping notes on general things. First of all the drivers and the teams love Melbourne for a couple reasons. One, everybody loves that the beach is so close to the circuit. Apparently, a lot of them like to go and hang out at the beach before the race.
That's
dope.
So innocent and sweet.
And
just like chill vibes.
I'm just gonna go chill at the beach. And apparently they have the best coffee. Like, everyone loves the coffee houses in Melbourne, apparently.
Interesting. I never thought
They
about that.
literally, to the point where people have talked about it multiple times this weekend.
I have
Frothy's, like,
never thought
the first
about
thing I do when I get off the plane
Australian
is
coffee.
go to a coffee shop.
Interesting.
But now I must know.
Exactly.
Other notes, the grid boxes, which we have seen have been an issue the past 2 races, and you'll notice we didn't have any issues with that, have been widened from 2.4 to 2.7 centimeters. And also, you've seen the addition of some yellow lines, I believe, on the grid as well. Those are to help the drivers see.
Interesting. So are we accommodating the increased width of the car along with the
Increased width of the
increased width
car,
of tires?
increased width of tire, and the wheel brow that inhibits your ability
So they
to
can't
yeah.
see. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So
I'm glad that the FIA is doing something about it instead of just continually giving penalties to
I
drivers.
am too, because none of us like to see a penalty that started on the grid when the driver can't see.
Okay, wait. This kind of gives me
Hope?
like hope that the FIA like might be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we gonna see more like infrastructure around like penalties in the pit lane? Like, I'm excited about that.
So I think there was clarification given to the teams on this rule, but there wasn't anything like super specific.
In like driver briefing or team
Yeah, I think it was a
briefings?
driver/team briefing, which I wish we still had the video version. Or like,
Right.
I wish we still got insight into that.
Also, really quick side. At the team briefing, this is directly from Lando Norris himself. At the driver briefing,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Ricciardo was there. Him and Lando made eye contact, and they looked at each other and like, "It's time for a hug, buddy." And they gave each other a big fat hug. Yeah.
Well, so you want to know what's hilarious is everyone has been saying Daniel Ricciardo is the most popular driver here, and he's not even on the grid. Every time, you could even hear it on the broadcast, like, of the race.
Oh yeah.
Every time they show Daniel Ricciardo on the grid, like on the screen, everyone freaks out.
There were so many Daniel heads everywhere. Like, he is not racing.
No, but everybody loves. Well, he's the most lovable thing in the world.
I know.
Scotty James was also there this weekend, which is nobody's surprise. And if you don't know who Scotty James is, he is a professional snowboarder, Daniel's BFF, and
professional Olympic snowboarder for Australia.
Yeah.
He is Australian. He has the same sponsor of OKX.
No, Optus.
And OKX, I think.
Oh.
Are they the same thing?
Maybe.
Yes, of the like optimism thing. I don't know what it is. But yeah, they have the same sponsor. Also, Scotty James is the boyfriend of Lance Stroll's sister.
Yes. So Scotty was in the Aston Martin garage this weekend.
So he is like kind of Lance Stroll's brother-in-law.
Yes.
So that's like, this is a part of, as we would refer to it, like the F1
universe.
CU. Like,
yeah, it's like the
Formula One cinematic universe. Like the way it's like Marvel or whatever. Like, this is the F1 CU, you know, like everything's connected.
Yes. Now, should we officially get into the race? So we had Checo and Valtteri both starting from the pit lane. Checo took new engine components and Bottas took new suspension.
Which, that makes sense for Checo considering that he was having problems and that's why he didn't even get to set a time in quali. But he was starting 20th anyways.
Yeah, so that makes
throw him in the pit lane.
Exactly. If you're going to take a grid penalty, you take it when you're already taking 20th. Now, the other main point for this race is that due to a lot of red flags, weather issues, and other issues, they had the GPS go out in FP1. The teams were low on data. Like, they did not have the amount of data that they would normally have going into this weekend.
As well as during practices and quali, it was rainier, windier days because I believe we're in Australia earlier than we were previously.
And also, Melbourne is known, like literally known for having like 4 seasons in a day.
So really cold, wet, rainy days, and then it was hot on Sunday. Yeah. And so the data from tires and all these things was like really weird. They didn't have the information that they needed.
Exactly. Other fun information about the race, the crowd was sold out. They there were about 450,000 people there.
450,000.
That's nuts.
That's so
crazy. So awesome. I love how popular F1 is getting, and it's not just in America, it is all around the world. I feel like we have seen a massive influx in fan base, and that's just good for the sport. We love to see it.
I agree. I actually recently had a conversation with someone who actually owns a car dealership. And I mentioned that we do a podcast about Formula One.
Mhm.
And they were like, "Oh, how did you get into Formula One?" And I'm like, "Oh, my sister, whatever." And they're like, "I saw a TikTok about this guy who was stuck in his burning car for 30 seconds and he can't run his hands over it." I'm like, this is so funny. I know exactly who that is. I know what he does now. I saw him in Texas. And it's just one of those things where I'm like,
You're
it's
like,
reaching
that's
like
Roman Grosjean.
it's
He actually drives for IndyCar now. We saw him in Texas.
it's like reaching the most
Mhm.
random people through so much social media. I love it. I love it so much. Anyways,
All right, so we will get officially into the race right now. George Russell had an amazing race start.
starting in P2, right?
Yep.
Just-
Qualified in P2, and he had a beautiful start.
He led the race for a few
Led the
laps.
race for, what was it, four laps?
Something. The Max just got
Between
the
2 and 4
DRS.
laps.
You know, the
But
Red Bull
Max was having to
series.
defend against Lewis.
Oh yeah.
I was watching this and I was like, what's going on?
Right?
What is going on? There was a small, not incident that could have been an incident. It probably would have been an incident 2 years ago, where Max thought Lewis pushed him wide, and Max didn't technically have that corner because he was not half of his car length ahead of Lewis going into the apex of the turn.
So, and on that,
and FIA ruled no further investigation.
Yes. And Crofty and Jensen made amazing points about this, where they're like, I feel like in that conversation, like you just said, an incident that could have been that wasn't or whatever, we saw a lot of maturity in Max, because also he didn't continue the complaint on the radio over and over and over, like pestering for something to be done. He just said, he pushed me wide. End of story. Keep racing. And then they're like, he didn't. And then he's like, okay. And I think that, and we see it again a little bit later in the race with the 10 car lengths thing. And it's like, he's like, isn't he supposed to be 10 car lengths? And that's like, nope, that's not it. And that's like, okay. It's like the maturity thing, where he's like, he's done arguing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I think it does help, obviously, that they have the more competitive car and he is winning. But also at this point, that hunger and drive, obviously that never goes away. But that itch for your first world championship, and you're going up against Lewis Hamilton, who most people believe is the greatest of all time, I think that's diminished. He has 2. He, like, not that he can relax, but I feel like with that, he's matured a lot. Max is my age, right? He's 25 now.
I believe so.
Yes. So he's, like, fully formed frontal cortex, doesn't need to be, you know, he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to get him on the straight then. Cool. Now, Leclerc was unfortunately out at turn 3 after getting tapped by Stroll, which the FIA deemed just an incident, which it was a racing incident.
I agree. This is so painful.
Turn 1.
Can Charles Leclerc, like,
so many people, dude. Listen, for my Charles Leclerc fans out there, I'm so sorry. Still, I mean, I'm a Charles Leclerc fan, but I don't, like, emotionally have skin in that game. And
you know that's where most of my skin is now that Daniel's gone.
I feel horrible for him because he has had just the worst luck this year.
I feel like halfway through last season, all the way till now, it's just her.
Yeah, it's just Spain without the S.
And we thought that no Binotto and with like a team principal change and with like certain changes on the pit wall and things like that it would get better. And in some ways it has, but at this, like, we're not seeing as many strategy issues. However, we did see one in Jeddah with the Javi, like, being like, hey, this is supposed to happen. He's like, you need to tell me before. That's all whatever. But now it's just like, it's one thing after another. Bad luck. Same with Carlos. Just bad luck.
Yes.
They have such shit luck, dude.
It's shit luck, but also shit planning.
Shit luck and Ferrari are just, like, together.
Yeah.
They just, like, are, like...
Who cursed Ferrari? Because I want to know.
I'm gonna find that witch and just wind it up, you know?
But with Leclerc out, that did bring out the safety car, and we saw a lot of pit stops on lap 1.
which was so cuckoo bananas.
Well,
What
so
the frickety
I
frack?
literally made a note. Tires last a while here, but still. Like
Everyone was
Alex
hoping
Albon,
for
yeah, everyone was hoping to be able to pull an Alex Albon.
or well, yeah,
Like
one
what he did
stop.
last year, which was hard tire run.
Hard
The
tire run
whole
whole race.
race and then changed at the last moment and got a great position out of it.
He finished 10th.
Yeah.
Which I do have to say, a lot of people were like, Alex, you should have just taken the penalty and raced and finished the race and taken the penalty for not having done the tire change. But that's not the point. Alex Albon was the tire whisperer in Australia last
He
year.
really was. The way he managed those tires was
And
insane.
stayed in the top 10. He was running an amazing race. Anyways, but
that was a flashback.
yes.
Flash forward.
Everybody was hoping to pull an Alex Albon after pitting and going on hards from mediums, which most of them had for the start.
Which, the other important thing to note is that the medium looked like the stronger tire all weekend. All through practice, everyone preferred the medium. All of the data on the medium was looking a lot better. And everyone was saying that the hard tire is hard to get working. And
no one could get heat into their tires. So, like, hard was just having, like, the hardest time.
Exactly. Right after that, I have the note, Albon looking good, because I believe he was running in 5th or 6th place at this point. And immediately after that, spoke too soon, Alex out, bad slide, safety car deployed.
And this is where we have our first red flag.
Yes. And this is also where we have a little bit of Mercedes drama. So just prior to the Alex Albon incident, George is being told to manage because he's in P1. That's what you do. You manage your tires. You make sure you're doing good. And Lewis is obviously attacking, partially because he has pressure from Verstappen behind, but also partially because he's Lewis Hamilton and how he can't not. Yes. No. So Russell comes over the radio and he goes, "You're telling me to manage, but I'm being attacked by my own teammate. So
do you want me to manage?
Do you want me to defend or do you want me to manage?" So I potentially see that scenario getting a little dicey occasionally. However,
I don't think it will ramp up to full heat and drama.
I don't think so either, because both of them are very mature individuals.
And think about what Lewis said after George got second in quali. Lewis was like, "Oh, we're really happy, blah, blah." And he goes, "I'm so happy for George. Like, amazing. George did great today." That kind of thing. The main rivalry I always think of with Lewis is Nico Rosberg.
Yeah.
And that was not their relationship. It wasn't like, "Woo, Nico did great. Great thing from the team."
But Lewis was so much younger back then.
Exactly.
Nico is a
menace.
Yes. And look, I say that
Nico Rosberg is bad luck. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. So the one thing I will say about Nico Rosberg is, like, he holds that grudge to this day, and, like, holds that whatever, like, I beat Lewis in the same machinery to this day. And I really don't think Lewis gives a shit anymore. Would you agree?
Lewis has won how many world titles since then?
Yeah. So
how many races since then? How many podiums since then?
Exactly.
Nico Rosberg retired.
I just feel like Nico's the type of person who just really loves to needle, you know? Like, he just enjoys.
He is an instigator.
Yes. So I feel like that was definitely a very different situation. But I am interested to see what's going to happen there. I do think, though, for the most part, like, Russell's a very level-headed driver in the car. And also, I think
he's an even more level-headed person out of the car.
Yes.
Because I always think about what Will said. Will Owen, we had him on the podcast. He's our dear friend who's a race car driver. I always think about what Will said, where he's like, you feel like people are trying to kill you.
Like, every time you are driving in the car, it feels like everyone around you is trying to kill you.
And that's one of those things that I remember when the drivers are coming across really calm. I'm like, he is really calm for the situation he is in.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, obviously the calmest driver literally ever is Fernando Alonso. It's bordering on terrifying. I'm like, you.
Like, I know Carlos Sainz is the smooth operator, but Fernando Alonso is the
bordering on apathetic.
Operator.
Like, he's like, anyways, you want to check the rule book on that? Because that didn't seem right to me. Like, just, like, chill.
Yeah. He's like, guys, check the rule book on this. I'm pretty sure this is what happened in Silverstone last year. I'm like, you're driving a car at 200 miles an hour.
Like, he has like a computer in his steering wheel, and he's like scrolling through the rule book instead of looking at the road and just like
it
like,
always
that's
gives
what I
me
imagine.
Spy Kids vibes. Remember, like the little glasses screen that comes in
Yes.
front and it has a computer. Like he has one of those in
Yes.
his helmet, and he's just scrolling through the rule book. He's like, actually, in Article 16.3, subsection 2.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
That is exactly. Anyways, so red flag, obviously, for Alex. Now, it wasn't an immediate red flag. We had a safety car first, and George Russell pitted and came out in 7th, and that really, really screwed him over. Because
not that it mattered.
Lewis initially is like, guys, like, this screwed me.
And they're like, we don't think so.
They're like, we don't think so. And
then it red flagged.
Russell had pitted
and
then red flagged, and he's the one that got screwed.
Not that it mattered in the end.
Exactly. But now, this was the second safety car in the first like 10 laps.
Oh,
so
this was a
nobody
race,
initially thought that we were going to see this many red flags. Another point, there were 3 red flags, and this is the first race in history that has seen 3 red flags. Now,
not to mention the amount of safety cars, not to mention the
now
the amount of debris on the track. Debris.
This is what I was going to point out, because a lot of people were very confused as to why we went from a safety car to a red flag after we'd had, whatever. Initially, I was like, is it because the tractor's out and we saw Suzuka last year?
Yes, that conversation.
Part of it, I think, was that, but also everyone was saying that the amount of gravel that was on the track, and also the amount of carbon fiber debris that we saw on the track because of that barrier that Alex had hit. We've seen this be an issue a couple times in the past.
Punctures,
races,
actual
like carbon fiber
floor damage, like
punctures, floor damage, all of that,
things like that.
And I think they're being really cautious of that. And essentially, the race director was like, "Look, we can spend 10 laps under safety car while we sit here and we have people try to sweep this, or we can red flag the race, hit pause, and just bring the sweeper out and bring everyone out." And I think that is the right call.
I do have to say, the amount of red flags felt excessive. However, the reasons that it was red flag makes sense.
Yes.
There were some things Jensen Button was saying that I agreed with, like at the end, that we should have had a stop, full start, not a rolling restart, and just seen what happened in the last lap.
That's what I'm saying.
But I do have to say that I think also when we take into consideration when something gets red flagged is that race control is listening to driver radio. Nico Hulkenberg was like, I almost just hit Alex because it was completely blind.
And if you have not seen the onboard of Nico Hulkenberg,
really
it's
scary,
terrifying. And Nico Hulkenberg literally
almost smashed
by probably about this much. And the reaction times, this is where I really sometimes feel like these guys are superhuman, because the reaction time in that moment for Nico Hulkenberg was incredible.
It was like the same as when they're driving in the rain and they literally can't see anything because the amount of dust and gravel that was flying and he barely missed Alex's rear wing. It was crazy.
Absolutely.
And I just think that they listen to that and then they're like, okay, so as we sit and try and clear this up, also we have to consider we're running their tires, we're doing all of these things, it's unsafe, it's taking longer, it's all of that stuff. And I just think, I don't know, I think it makes sense to me. As a spectator
as well, as much as when you're watching it on TV or you're there as a fan, having the red flag out kind of sucks because there's no cars on track, but as a spectator, you want to see all 58 laps of racing. That's what you want. Nobody wants to sit and watch them go around under a safety car for 7 laps.
No, because you're wasting
race time. And I think we've seen that be an issue in the past couple seasons, is where that safety car comes out and it's like, okay, it's almost like watching a parade, a really fast parade. And so my opinion is the red flag was the right call in this instance, in this scenario.
Really quick comment also on Alex's crash. I have to say, for some reason, the crashes in this race felt really hard. Extremely visceral. I'm wondering if
it's just the areas that caught people out specifically.
Because Alex's crash was it was a hard hit.
Yes.
Like, harder than I expected.
Yes.
And watching his onboard, I was like, ooh, ouch. And then you think about
he
K-Mag.
walked away from that really quickly. Alex Albon walked away from that completely unscathed. And this is where we just need to talk about safety and the headrest and everything for a second, because
everything that we talked about in our F1 for Dummies and all of those safety regulations, they are saving people's asses over and over and over and over and over.
And we will make another iteration of that probably when it comes to the summer break.
Yeah, and any updates that they've made this year.
Yes.
Anyways, K-Mag, his suspension damage with the tire flying off and painful
and
to
we
watch.
will get to that. Yes.
And
the Pierre Esteban, it gives me the cringe.
It looks like it
yes.
hurts.
Yes.
It was so hard. I don't know. This is like, because obviously we've seen crashes.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any crashes in Bahrain. We didn't have any crashes in Jeddah. I don't believe. We had DNFs, no crashes.
We had DNFs, but I don't think we had any crashes.
In both those races. Maybe I'm just not used to the crashes again because we had such a long break, but there were a lot in this race, and they were hard hits.
Yes. So we had new tires for everyone, and George and the couple people who pitted under the safety car got completely screwed by the red flag. And that is unfortunate. But like I said, hard for the strategy engineer to call that in the time being like, oh yeah, they're going to red flag this when they have no prior history of that. The one other thing I want to point out is if you do watch watch through the red flag, George has found Carlos Sainz's blow dry helmet hair guy, because his hair came out of that helmet, and I was like, granted we'd had 10 laps, but I'm like, it looks like perfectly styled still, and he's not wearing a hat. How do you do this?
I don't know what's up. I don't know what's up.
He found the blow dryer in the helmet guy, and I'm here for it. Like, I love it.
I must thank that man.
All right.
Whoever invented that helmet.
There wasn't too much restart drama, I would say. The only thing was that 10 car lengths that we were talking about behind, because they put him behind the safety car, and everyone for the most part was on the hard tire, and they were trying desperately to get heat into those tires.
Because they put them behind the safety car, but it was a full stop to restart. It wasn't a rolling restart.
And so everyone is trying to get heat into those tires, and everyone's like, can Burt Mylander please drive faster?
And then Max is like, Lewis is basically stopped in front of me, and I don't see the safety car anywhere. What about
there's
10
no way he's 10 car lengths.
And then everyone's like, yeah, that is weird. They're gonna have to check that out. Then was it Ted Kravitz in the pit lane who came on and said, hey guys, actually Lewis is correct. I think everyone forgot he is an 8-time world champion and probably knows the rules really well. He is correct, and he has every right to slow down and get to where he wants to be, because technically this is a formation lap.
Yes, so that is where the technicality comes from, because it is technically a formation lap. Although he is behind the safety car has gone back into the pit lane.
Exactly.
So he then has that freedom once the safety car has
as the race leader.
As the race leader to lead and determine the safety lap.
It is the same as a formation lap, how the pole sitter gets to determine the pace of everyone behind him.
Which, to be honest, aside from the issue that we saw at that blind corner, and I can't remember exactly which turn it is, where people were having to pass each other, and that almost got dicey.
Is that the corner where Alex crashed?
I think it might have been.
Yeah, so that got crazy.
We had was
it Hulkenberg who drove over, or was it Magnussen?
Magnussen drove up and over, and I think it might have been Sonoda as well. Both of them had to go this way because everyone was like almost kind of stopped.
Yeah, that was one of those things where like all of them, I believe, were thinking the same thing Max was, where it's like we all are going safety car speed, and Lewis is like, guys, you forgot. I know everything, and we don't have to go safety car speed.
But I will say that probably saved us from what happened under our second red flag, where none of them could get heat into the tires.
Exactly.
And because as much as he like stopped the field a little bit, he also then made it so everyone could get that, get up to speed and get that heat in their tires. So then on the restart, Hamilton had a great restart, did continue to lead that race until DRS was enabled. We did get some contact between De Vries and Ocon, but there was no further investigation, and it did not inhibit either of them. It was just a quick boop boop. Just an incident. I literally have a note that says what's going on with Bottas, because I don't think Bottas had broken 15th place at any point within the race. He did stop, I believe, under that first safety car, or it was either under the first safety car or the second one, and he did kind of get screwed over for that.
Bottas, Sainz, Yuki, and George all stopped to get tires under the safety car that turned red flag.
Okay.
And they all got a little effed there.
So as soon as DRS was enabled, Verstappen did go around Hamilton, and it did almost look like a flashback of last week because that Red Bull just is so fast under DRS.
What's going on?
Yeah. Because a lap later, Max already had a 2-second lead because he did have that DRS on Lewis for the entire lap. That is maybe
four.
Yes.
Oh, this actually reminds me. They were talking about how the lap record and the fastest lap is faster than it was last year, which was set by Charles, because there are 4 DRS zones. So every lap is technically faster than it has been because there is the DRS speed.
Yep.
So
I actually found that really interesting, and it was also really cool to see that fastest lap getting traded up and down the field consistently.
Who ended up with fastest lap?
I actually don't remember who ended up with the fastest lap.
Me either.
So Max already had a 2-second lead on Lewis after literally 1 to 2 laps passing him. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. George was up to 4th by the time the DRS, I think it was 3 or 4 laps into the DRS being enabled. So the Mercedes had pace this weekend because the cars he was passing were like Stroll, Sainz, and who else was up there? Gasly. Which those 3 were fighting all race.
Pierre Gasly, what are you doing there, bud?
I'm happy for him though. I really feel like
Gasly needed the boost that he was never ever getting at
Red Bull.
Yes.
He needed someone to like obviously believe in him because
he needed the car.
I think we're also forgetting how damaging that entire experience with Red Bull being promoted and then demoted in a season, how like horribly damaging that has to be to somebody's psyche.
Yes.
Like mentality wise.
And the thing is Pierre Gasly is truly, genuinely an incredible driver.
Absolutely.
With an insane champion mindset.
Absolutely.
And I think anything can change. Aston Martin suddenly has an amazing car that like, whoa, depending how the rest of the year goes, Fernando Alonso might just like literally win a bunch of races and become world champion. Like literally anything can happen. You know what I mean?
Would love to see that. I'm not gonna lie.
Right? I doubt with Red Bull.
Right.
But you know what I mean.
Yes.
It's crazy. So it's like he has a better chance with Alpine having like a crazy year. And even in a couple years,
I really feel like we are
ever gonna have
Alpine with some pace as well this year. I think Alpine's starting to find it.
It's more than he was gonna get at AlphaTauri.
Yes.
Because look at AlphaTauri this year.
Yes.
They're struggling.
Yeah.
Like they have been the last couple years.
At this point, this was probably like lap 15. Checo's already up in 15th place. Carlos did pass Lance Stroll eventually, which was good. We were hopeful. Things were looking up. And then George was on fire, which was terrible. Horrible news for everyone.
He did make it to the pit exit.
Yes, which did close the pit lane entry. Because he was at the pit exit, it closed the pit lane entry. He could not get into the pit lane because Stroll was
making the pass on.
Yes, exactly.
Which that's just how racing works.
Exactly. That's exactly how racing works. Nothing bad on Stroll, just the unfortunate moment. But yeah, scary. There were a lot of flames coming out of that Mercedes. And that's something that we really haven't seen because Mercedes has, for the past couple years, been extremely reliable. Yeah. Fun fact, this is George Russell's first mechanical failure since joining Mercedes. The only other DNF he had was in Silverstone, I believe, which was a crash.
Yes. So in comparison to, say, Red Bull, which not that Red Bull is extremely unreliable, but the last 2 years they've had some reliability issues. You know, like Mercedes might be a slow car, but it works, which is not what they want.
It's unfortunately F1 isn't always the case of the tortoise and the hare, where like the reliability will win you everything, but you do have to have reliability in order to consistently finish races. So you have to have that like mixture of both.
which everyone actually was asking Max about because him and Checo were having problems because obviously
all weekend.
Max last race in Jeddah had
Mhm.
the reliability issue of
Mhm.
his, I believe, gear shaft, like driving shaft.
Oh yeah,
And
he said his shifts this weekend were still terrible.
still weird. And Checo obviously was having whatever his issue was. Then he had to have engine components replaced.
New engine
and
components.
Things, reliability wise, things are not perfect going on at Red Bull. However, Max said, nope, we're not having a problem. We just want things to be fine tuned. I'm like, you, sir, are sugarcoating what's happening because, but they can. Everything is working for them, so they can sugarcoat it because they are winning.
Exactly.
But it's like, you know,
it's just, it is what it is. Now, this is where we saw the really great Checo overtaking moments. Checo fights through the field so well.
And
Max
they talked about his record of fighting through the field a lot.
Yes. Checo is like historically very, very good at fighting through the field. And so by lap 23, Perez was in 10th. And I believe a lap or two later, he was in 9th. I'm like, go off, bestie. Okay.
There's a great point about this, actually. Our dad made a prediction. Our dad was at a soccer game and was talking to someone who was wearing a Checo hat. And he's like, yeah, he's starting in the pit lane or he's starting in 20th, blah, blah, blah. And our dad goes, yeah, well, he'll be in 5th. He'll finish in 5th. I already know it. Like, he'll go from 20th to 5th. Haha.
How did we create dad this way? Like, what did we do? Because
sprinkled some magical F1 powder on him. I don't know.
I think we've just been like throwing so much at him that he's like, I was impressed.
Right? And then he did. He finished in 5th. He is suddenly Fernando Alonso. Like Fernando Alonso last week, where he's like, Max will be in 2nd by lap 25. And then he was.
Yeah.
It's the exact same. And I'm like, Dad, how did you do that?
Exactly. Literally.
Anyways, yeah. Just Checo's great overtaking. Amazing.
Amazing overtaking.
Checo had a great race and he got driver of the day.
Which I believe was well deserved.
I think it was well deserved. There were a couple people that I think could have been contenders. Yeah. Gasly, Norris, who else?
Fernando.
Yeah.
But now, if you did not watch the race, there was a completely, and I mean ongoing battle between Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, and Lance Stroll all race long.
Which is something we were never
were trading.
How did we get
I know. They were trading, what was it, 4th or 5th position?
It was like 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yeah, they were trading 4th, 5th, and 6th position all race long.
Yes.
So we saw some great overtaking moves by literally all 3 of them. Then we saw potentially some tire games from Hamilton, or I don't know. My note says, is Hamilton playing tire games or is he actually happy with his tire? Will made a great point at one point when we interviewed him last year that Hamilton is never happy with his tires. So if he comes on and he says he's happy with his tires, like this is a new thing for Lewis.
Yes, exactly. It's either true or he's faking.
Yes. And I really respect James Coulthard for asking him outright in his post-race interview, was that tire games or did you really not like the tire? And Lewis goes, oh man, like, no, I was struggling. Like that tire. And I'm like, Lewis, that smile on your face is saying something different.
It's saying that you, in fact, were playing tire games.
But Lewis loves tire games. That's like his favorite. Lewis loves a good mental tire game. Sainz did finally get past Pierre, and so he was in 4th, I believe. Then we had another little battle between Tsunoda, Piastri, and Ocon. Piastri lost a place to Ocon, but then Piastri was past Tsunoda, so it was Piastri had a great race. He did. He put on a good show for the hometown fans.
Did he finish in the points?
I believe he did.
Because of
the penalty.
Don McLaren.
By this time, this was probably in the lap 40. Verstappen had an 8-second gap to Lewis Hamilton.
No, because the crazy thing is Verstappen had his little...
Oh, and then he had a little
snap moment that was kind of whack.
It was hilarious what he said in the post-race interview. He goes, oh, yeah, I actually just did the people here a favor. I cut the grass for you right there, so you guys don't have to do that anymore. I was like, Max.
Who knew that they were also comedians?
Sarcasm, my guy. Loving
He had
that.
his little snap, lost about 3-second lead that he had,
Yeah,
built
so
it right back up.
he
It was
was in-
there
yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievably fast. It
It's shocking.
it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Especially when it's in that clean air.
Yeah. Like he has no DRS on any
Anyone.
lap. No lap, no DRS. And he is 8 seconds ahead. It's crazy. Like that is bananas.
Yep, absolutely nuts. Checo did then pass Lando, so I think he
Mhm.
was up in 8th or 9th at that point. Then we saw some funny things.
What?
AlphaTauri pitted for
What?
softs.
I don't know what they were doing. Not that it mattered in the end, obviously.
No, but I'm confused.
I would love to know what the
Because
strategy was.
were they trying to go for fastest lap? And if so,
They had a lot of time.
like, yeah,
There were a lot of laps left.
there were a lot of questions in my brain about that strategy call.
Because this was like 15 laps left or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What you doing?
Yeah.
And it was on DeVries. Or was it on Sonoda?
Both, I thought.
Maybe. I don't know what they were doing. Because
I don't know. There's so many questions
once
about
again,
that
yes,
entire
not that it
situation.
mattered in the end. Because
Yeah.
2 more red flags later and a crash. Like, not that it mattered, but
There were teams that never had to make a normal pit stop. I don't think McLaren made a single in-race pit stop.
so AlphaTauri was one of those teams until they
Mm-hmm.
made that pit stop. It was McLaren and it was
So it was McLaren and Haas.
maybe
Anyways.
that probably saved so much of McLaren's race for them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
McLaren benefited so much from the red flags in this race.
And you know what?
Where other teams did not.
That's a hats off to the strategists
Exactly.
on that. Then we had Kevin Magnussen losing his right rear tire. What I believe happened is he had a little touch with the wall, and that just caused the tire to.
So yeah, I'm not sure. They didn't really clarify very well if the touch caused the rear suspension damage or if there was rear suspension damage that caused the tire tap, and then the tire just flew off, slammed into a different wall, was laying in the middle.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of debris from that, obviously.
Yes.
To the wall,
Did he run into the barrier there or no? Because
So-
that was the same corner that Alex hit.
So we're not sure if it was a tap that caused it,
Mm-hmm.
but the actual scuff that they showed, that was from the tire flying into it. So it wasn't him hitting it there, it was the tire.
Gotcha.
So we're not sure if he hit it where it was. I didn't double check that later, but it was definitely weird.
It was a weird incident.
Most of the incidents that happened in this race, they were like,
it's like
this is
every
really abnormal.
really weird freak accident that could possibly happen.
Because it's not even normal ones. It's freak accidents.
Honestly, this race was like
the only
not Schrodinger's
normal
cat. What is the
anything that can happen will happen?
Yes, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. What's the law or the rule?
Oh, I don't know. But it's not that if a tree falls in the wood, a tree doesn't fall if no one's there to hear it.
Schrodinger's cat is like, is the cat dead or alive in a box?
Which is the same as, does the tree make a sound if no one's there to hear it? That's the same thing, correct?
Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a really long time.
We're like literally talking about
scientific theories,
right?
Anything that could go wrong in this race went wrong. The only
normal incidents were all the ones that happened at turn 3, like the first lap with Charles. That was a normal incident. Turn 3 is sketchy. All of the shit that went down on the second red flag restart,
which we're about to get into,
that genuinely, it literally made almost none of the race matter.
Yes.
Which makes me so upset.
Yes.
It was such a long race.
Yes.
For literally so much of it to just not matter.
No, exactly. And so if you did watch the race, we had a red flag is when that happened to K-Mag. Originally, I think it was a virtual safety car, and it was almost immediately red flagged.
Because he was able to pull it all the way to a safe place to exit.
Yes, which shocking with no tire.
But the thing is his tire and debris was laying in the middle of the road, so in the middle of the track, so they had to clear that. And once again, they decided we will red flag it because there is so much debris and a tire and the car and all these things. So it makes more sense to red flag it and give them some laps, because I believe at this point there were only 5, 6 laps left. No, they only had 2 that they could race, because there was going to be 1 or 2 behind a safety car.
So there were about 2 or 3 laps behind the virtual safety car before they red flagged
And
it.
then
It was red flagged, and there were 2 laps left.
2 racing laps
Yes,
left.
2
So they would
racing
have
laps left.
1 behind the safety,
safety
car
car,
at the out lap, and then
2 laps.
Now, this is where shit hit the fan, dude.
So if you were watching this race live, at this point the race is going on for like an hour and 35,
this
40
was a
minutes.
like 2-hour and 40-minute race.
The race itself, yeah, was like 2 hours and almost 45
because
minutes.
after this, we waited for like almost another hour.
So we have the red flag. And then we essentially get a 2-lap sprint race with no DRS. So there will be no DRS for this sprint race. So the person that impacts the most, well, besides kind of everyone, is Red Bull, because Red Bull, I feel like, by far has the most advantage from DRS.
Yes, and that would potentially have kept Max behind Lewis and could have led to a Lewis win.
Well,
which we were
Max
kind of all
was in
hoping
first
for.
at this point.
Oh, I know, but everyone thought Lewis was going to pass him because
yes.
Lewis was way better off the line.
Had been great
Mercedes was amazing off the line this weekend.
Absolutely, they were. Now, the one thing I will say is, Max actually on that safety car restart immediately goes and covers off Lewis, which is exactly what he should have done, and he performed it perfectly well.
It was
one of his best restarts I've ever seen,
and his best start of the weekend of the race, because he had a few. Everyone had a couple starts.
Yeah, it was honestly like a practice start race. There was just a
over
lot of starts. Like, if you didn't get the first one right, don't worry, there'll be more.
You were gonna have another one.
Exactly. So this is where we saw the cold tires, because what Max didn't do was what Lewis had done, where he backed up the entire field enough that he could accelerate as fast. So everyone is on the radio. Please tell him to go faster. Please tell him to go faster. Like,
can the safety car go any faster?
Like, I can't get any heat into my tires. And granted, we also have to remember that Burt Mylander, while he's a phenomenal driver, he's not in an F1 car. They're still going ridiculously fast in these cars.
We talk about this a lot, I think. How slow they look on TV in comparison to in person is almost hilarious.
Yes.
Because having seen a race in person
and behind a safety car,
yes, they are going so
Burt Mylander is driving his heart out.
Like, literally going 150 miles an hour. Like,
so I think sometimes there's a little bit of a misconception with the safety car, because they are not just parading him around at this slow speed, because keep in mind, F1 cars have to be going a certain speed and have to maintain a certain speed in the tire to be able to run at all. Otherwise, it causes damage to the gearbox.
We should have a conversation about this at some point, maybe make an episode about this.
I really think we should bring Will in on this too, because I think he'd enjoy that as well.
Yes, because I think that the actual mechanics of an F1 car and the way that they have to be started and kept running and things like that is something that people don't really think about.
Yes, it's not a normal car where you can just get in, turn it on, and go.
That's why there's a red flag.
So many.
The way that they have to stop in the pit lane for a red flag, things have to be cooled, things have to be plugged back in, things have to whatever. It's all very specific, because that's why when the cars don't just drive out and park in the pit lane and are ready to start, they are being like touched, tires heated, stuff plugged in, this, whatever, right before the start of the race, because they have to be like, they're like little babies.
Yes.
The F1 cars are delicate.
They're extremely technologically advanced, but they're extremely delicate as well.
They have to be baby.
Very fascinating. So this is where you see speed being kind of like such an issue, and one of the reasons they really need that speed is to get heat into the tires. But also, we have to just remind everyone that Burt Mylander is human, and he is in a, granted, very, very fast Mercedes safety car, but it isn't an F1 car.
I do have to say, I love the Mercedes safety car. It was red, correct?
The crowd strike. Oof, it looks good, doesn't it?
And you know how I feel about Mercedes cars.
Normally, I'm not the biggest fan of them.
Don't usually like them almost at all. And I love the red Mercedes safety car. It is so nice. Anyways.
I can't disagree with you there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was, because of this chaos on the restart, Sainz had contact with Fernando Alonso. Some are referring to it as the Spanish Civil War of,
and we also had the French Revolution.
Oh yes, the French Revolution as well. You know, we had a reintroduction of a lot of famous battles throughout history in this race. It was a great time going on.
Fernando Alonso had a really big spin, ended up pretty much in the back.
No, at the back of the grid. Miracle that car did not end up in a wall or get hit by anybody else.
This is one of those things where it is just Fernando Alonso because there was no damage.
No,
it is just Fernando Alonso.
Like, just insane amount of luck, but also intuition, and it's incredible to me.
Yes, and this is one of those things where we've had this conversation before last season where I was like, I don't love Fernando Alonso. I understand he's a great driver. I don't love him. I like him so much more this year at the front because we're seeing him more. We're seeing his driving.
Though, like, we are seeing more of his personality come out in his driving.
Because he is more excited.
Yes. I feel like Aston Martin is a really great fit for him.
Uh-huh.
And I don't feel like him and Esteban Ocon were good teammates.
No.
At all.
Oh, no.
I don't think so. I don't know
if Esteban Ocon is good with any of his teammates.
I have questions about that as well.
Because ever since his teammate was Checo, they did not get along at all.
Did he get along with Daniel? I mean, who doesn't get along with Daniel?
I don't know that he really got along with Daniel.
I don't know either. Anyways, with that, we had contact between Sainz and Fernando Alonso. That then caused a little bit of a ripple effect all throughout the field. Everyone's slowing down. Everyone's trying to avoid Fernando.
We had 6 cars out.
So
this is turn 3. This is the first turn.
Mm-hmm. And let's
gravel.
Yeah. Let's really quickly just touch on the Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon knife to the heart, because Pierre Gasly was driving his heart out. He had an amazing race. I feel so bad for Otmar Safinow because he honestly had done, the entire Alpine team had done a great job that weekend.
And he had said, we still have hope if they don't do a restart and they keep the order from before. However, that did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, Pierre and Esteban Ocon were entirely out of the race.
And the points, which is super, super unfortunate. So what essentially happened is, Pierre has to move to avoid the Sainz-Fernando incident.
Does not see
Ocon. Ocon, they touch tire right to the middle and
slam.
Both of them
slam into the
barrier. And that was an ugly crash. That was one of those that makes you go, ooh.
Yeah, if you watch Esteban Ocon's onboard, you can see Pierre in front of him, and that slam, it hurts.
We actually got to watch that real time in a replay version with Otmar, and Otmar goes, yeah, I just don't think Pierre saw him.
He just didn't see him.
And
I love that he doesn't villainize his drivers.
Absolutely.
Genuinely, I love that.
I think that's a really, really great quality. I like Otmar a lot.
Yeah, me too.
As a team principal, I really respect him as a team principal. The other thing that we need to touch on was, number one, Nick DeVries had a rough race. It was not Nick DeVries' race. I feel like not a single safety car or pit stop went his way.
Nick DeVries was taken out by Logan Sargent.
And Logan Sargent ran into the back of him at the race restart.
So, Gasly, Ocon, DeVries, Sargent, Kevin Magnussen, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, and Alex Albon. All DNF'd. And this gave us another red flag.
Yes. So then we had another red flag. And this is where the majority of that time that was in the broadcast was spent.
Almost.
Because this is where the FIA has, let's acknowledge the fact that the FIA has so much pressure right here.
At least
to make, number one, the right decision. And number two, to make it a safe decision.
At least they didn't jump.
I'd rather the FIA take the 35 minutes that they took, go through the rule book, go through all of the past instances here, I'm sure they're communicating with every team boss, every team whatever,
They have
and
to be unbiased.
and make the correct decision.
And I think that a lot of this came down to the decision that they ruled in Silverstone and the consistency that they are trying to have because they are notoriously inconsistent.
Exactly. And I have to say, I think they made the right call in this instance because they did not go through a sector.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Okay.
I think this is the call that should have been made in the 2021 Abu Dhabi race.
The one where Max took his first world championship?
I think that they should have red flagged it, and they should have had the start that Jensen Button said, where they do the one lap starting, like not a rolling restart, an actual start one lap, like they were supposed to have with the second red flag that caused all the crashes. I think that is what should have happened in Abu Dhabi, because a red flag is a safer option, a fairer option, all of those things. I think that they have learned their lesson and they are doing red flags in this way because it is consistency, it is unbiased.
Also, as a fan, you don't want to sit there and watch 12 laps behind a safety car.
And you don't want the last lap to...
You don't want the race to finish under a safety car either.
It did in the last lap, but we hoped it wouldn't with the second red flag that was supposed to give us the 2 laps. You know?
And you can't really...
We can't do anything about
the fact that was a nightmare. Another thing that I noticed is Toto Wolff and Fred Vassar looked so conspiratorial while they were chatting on the pit wall during the red flag. They look, it's the type of scene that like they put in Drive to Survive when they're talking about something controversial, and they're like, well, I mean, this is what's happening here, and like, well, this is completely unfair, and you're like, that's going in Drive to Survive. Anyways, so thought that would be a fun thing to point out. What did end up happening was a 1 lap
behind the safety car. As soon as the safety car went into the pit, they had
the checkered flag. They literally crossed the line. There was like
and then
a meter. I think it was 1 meter exactly.
Hey, Lewis went for it.
Lewis still did give it his best, and you know what?
But yes, the race order that happened before the second red flag restart, so before all of the 5 DNFs that happened, that was the finishing race order. So it was Max, then Lewis, then Alonso, which amazing luck for Alonso because he ended up last.
Really amazing luck for Alonso. And you know what?
Luck for everyone who DNF'd.
Here's the thing. I think Alonso did deserve 3rd place.
I think so too. Also, Sainz got a 5-second penalty for that crash.
How do you feel about the Carlos Sainz penalty? Like, how do you feel about it?
I think I understand what they're doing.
Exactly.
I understand what they're doing. Once again, this is a consistency thing.
Yeah.
When they look at it and they say, okay, rule for rule, where was he in the turn? Where was this? Where was that? Because you also have to consider how much other damage Carlos caused by hitting Fernando. I think a penalty was deserved. I think it sucks.
I think it is horrible. Sucks. You can hear it in his voice.
So upset.
And it's like heartbreaking to hear. And he's like, no. Because Carlos really did drive his heart out.
He had a good race.
A really good race.
For what they could do. Because
yes,
Ferrari isn't having a great time.
But it truthfully breaks my heart that it happened the way that it did. Now,
it gave us other good things that I'm glad we saw.
Yes.
Piastri was in the points for his home race. He's a real home race boy because he's born and raised Melbourne.
Literally 25 minutes from Albert Park, I think is, or
no, 5 minutes, I think, down the street or something is like he's literally, that's like his neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like he's just a little.
He's like Charles in Monaco. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a little homeboy there. So for that, I'm really glad he got points.
Absolutely. But it does suck that, number one, it was at
I believe Yuki got pushed into the points as well.
Yuki got pushed into P10, and that is his first points of the season.
Which also, he now has the same trainer that was Daniel's trainer, who is Australian. I believe his name is Michael. And so it was Michael's home race as his trainer and their first points together.
Cute.
Right? So there were good things that happened. but it is really upsetting as a Ferrari fan and as a Carlos Sainz fan. Also, just there's a lot of uproar that happened.
Absolutely.
A lot of uproar.
I mean, Haas was upset because Hulkenberg would have been in 4th.
Yes.
However, I don't think Hulkenberg deserved that position.
I think that he obviously drove his heart out.
He did, and he's on a Haas.
And he finished, what, 7th?
Yeah, he outperformed Kevin Magnussen.
Oh, he just...
But...
Okay, to use, like, the way I normally talk, like, he slayed. Like...
Yeah.
Nico Hulkenberg slayed this race.
Okay? Time, like, rooting for Nico Hulkenberg, personally. He's just not... I don't have the same animosity towards him as, like, Tess does to Esteban Ocon, but, like, I just don't love Nico.
You were gonna say that.
Like, I just don't love Nico. Like, there's nothing in me that's like, oh, Nico. Like,
yeah. I enjoy him as a driver. I enjoy him. But, yeah, I think that, obviously, it's even a miracle that he finished the race where he did, because immediately in lap,
out lap, he literally broke down and had to walk back to the pits.
Like, I don't know what to say.
Anyways, getting to some last and final points. This is Red Bull's first podium in Melbourne since 2011, which I believe was Sebastian Vettel. And it is Max's first win in Melbourne.
As a Max Verstappen fan, I'm very happy for him. Obviously, everyone hates to see the winner win, but
I like to see something that hasn't happened before.
Exactly. This was an amazing thing for Red Bull. So it's the same thing with like Red Bull's 1-2 in Bahrain. Where it's like, we are happy for them for what they have done. They've broken a curse.
And one thing I also really, really enjoyed seeing is post-race interviews. After I love seeing driver interactions. That's one of my favorite things to witness and see. Everyone loves to talk about the Lewis Fernando kind of feud that doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
So it was great to see the two of them. Number one, talking and chatting like old friends. I think truthfully they are two brilliant minds within the sport of F1, and I think they have a lot of respect for each other at this point in time. Maybe not when they're younger in their career, but at this point in time.
I agree. I think there was a lot of animosity, and I think even up until like this last year, there was definitely some intensity.
Yeah, because they were teammates.
Yes. I think that watching Fernando do so well and watching Mercedes fight, even though they're not doing very well, has made both of them a lot more appreciative of each other and how good of drivers each other is, you know?
Yeah, it's a mutual respect type
It's increased their respect for one another.
Absolutely.
And when people are at the front together, they are together more. So, like, they are standing on a podium together. They are doing interviews together. They are sitting in a cool-down room. Things like that, where you don't see Fernando and Checo talking all the time. You never have.
No.
But now they are talking all the time because they are in the cool-down room together.
Absolutely.
Because Fernando's always on the podium now. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, great to see that. I think post-race interviews were awesome. Max did throw shade to Lewis, which we expect nothing less of him. What
was the shade?
He threw a little shade for the lap 1 incident of Lewis pushed me wide, and he's like, they're not adhering to the rules, and I guess we're gonna have to, go back and watch that. And I'm like, okay, so he hasn't let it go entirely, which of course not. He's Max Verstappen, but at the same time,
they're F1 drivers.
They never do. But it was also good to see on that number one, Max and Lewis shook hands after the race. Like, yeah. Immediately, not like big embracing hug, but shook hands, were completely respectful, which I think
things are getting better.
Yes, I think Max is maturing, and everyone's kind of just water under the bridging it a little bit. I'm sure it still hurts. I'm sure Lewis Hamilton still has pain from that, because that could have been an 8th world championship. That
imagine how much satisfaction Lewis would have gotten from winning in the second red flag if he had gotten a better start than Max, and then Max had no DRS. If all those crashes hadn't happened and there wasn't a 3rd red flag, or there was a 3rd red flag but Lewis had been in front, it would have anyways.
Yes, that would have been nuts. Like I was saying, though, it was really great to see everyone on that podium looked like they were genuinely celebrating together. Max and Lewis are spraying each other with champagne. Fernando and Lewis are spraying each other with champagne. It was a great thing to see. I think Max was just happy to hear something besides Spanish in the cool down room.
Facts.
He could actually hear what was and understand what was going on.
Max is just always like, anyways, so I'm just gonna start speaking in English and hope you guys talk to me. Like, literally.
Hi, did you forget I'm here?
So funny.
All right, so with that, let's get on that podium. Let's get into podium points.
Oh yeah, okay, so all of our podium points are actually exactly the same.
Again, and I know this has happened twice this season, and that's not usually what happens, but it's
the big moments are like big moments, you know?
So my number 3, and I believe both of our number 3 is McLaren getting their first points of the season.
Lando and Oscar having a good race.
Good race for McLaren. And also Piastri scoring points in his first home GP.
The strategist making all the right calls for all the red flags, making everything work. They get points for that. And both of the boys do. It was great.
And then the second one is kind of a Mercedes all in all, but mainly Lewis getting his first podium of the season and George qualifying second and Lewis qualifying third. It was a great weekend for Mercedes, and we celebrate that because I kind of love their, it's not like a true underdog story, but it's a little bit of an underdog story.
The last 2 years have been kind of rough. So yeah,
it's been a little bit of a rebuild kind of situation. So
exactly.
Happy to see that.
And then first is the Red Bull win. The first one since 2011, which really just makes me miss Seb, honestly.
It really, honestly, this race did make me miss Sebastian Vettel very, very badly.
And then obviously Max getting his first win in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Which is a big turnaround from last year where he DNF'd.
True. Maybe there's still hope for Charles.
I hope so. So yeah, that's our podium points. So each of those teams gets a point from each of us. Lewis and George get a point from each of us. Oscar and Lando get a point from each of us. And Red Bull and honestly, Red Bull, Checo, and Max get
because
points.
Checo was driver of the day. And
just flew through everyone. Yeah. Honorary mention, Alex and Quali.
Alex Albon does get an honorary mention.
Yeah.
Because had he not just gotten it so wrong at that turn, he really could have had an amazing race.
Yeah.
And I think our race would have been very different had he not gotten it wrong at that turn.
It would have been so different because we wouldn't have had that red flag.
Yeah.
And like Alex was running way up in the points.
Yeah.
He was running like 7th.
Yeah.
Or something. Crazy.
And George was in first.
Yeah.
So lots of interesting things going on there. Let's get into Pop Culture Princess really fast.
So we don't have a ton of stuff for Pop Culture Princess because I didn't have enough time to screenshot a bunch of stuff. However, we do have a couple things, and anything we don't talk about, we'll throw in, you know? We'll throw in little screenshots. Yeah. But this was an extremely memeable race.
Oh, so many memes about this race. I feel like
because of the chaos,
I feel like this race was one giant meme in a lot of senses.
Oh, yeah. The only times we had 11 World Drivers' Championships on a podium. So, we need to talk about that. The podium was all World Champions. And there was 11 championships between the 3 of them, which is crazy.
And the last time that happened was 2020 with...
That's just Lewis and Seb, I believe.
With Lewis and Seb together.
And then, obviously, Fernando
has 2.
And Max has 2. And Lewis has 7. Oh, this one's like unexplainable, but we're just gonna have to insert it.
We'll post this on our Instagram as well. Like we'll do a little repost of them.
Yes. There are so many good ones. Okay, let's see. F1 Troll, which by the way, F1 Troll is like my favorite. Getting 5-second penalty for a lap that doesn't exist is the most Carlos Sainz thing I've seen in a while. For a lap that didn't count, getting a penalty, it's just like it hurts my feelings. Ferrari fans listening to Carlos's response after the penalty,
it's Squidward in bed crying.
Danny Rick, audience cheers, race, audience falls silent.
Oh, that one made me laugh.
McLaren screwing points, and then it's half of the grid DNF.
And it's the Simpsons meme where he has like all of his fat pulled behind his back.
Alonso, the instant his podium is at risk, Alonsopedia. He's like, excuse me, well, I have the rule book actually right in front of me.
Oh, okay. So, if you are not familiar with this, there is something called Darth Toto, which is, if you have seen the Darth, like Kermit the Frog.
Yes.
Yes. So, Toto Wolff in his Rain Mercedes jacket looks, it's the same energy. And it's one of my favorite things.
So it says, we sacrifice George to take out Max. Lewis wins. This one, Max hoping for clean getaway from pole turn 1, and it's the George. It's the George. He's holding them off.
It's the Russell.
Okay, this is a letter to the fans, to all our fans. We would like to retract our apology. I guess we aren't that bad. And it's Mercedes. Our first Nick debris of the year. Thank you. What are you? The whole field, a Red Bull sandwich. Max and Checo, a Red Bull sandwich. We're just gonna leave that one there. Oh yeah. Okay, there's so many. We're gonna have to just post these. Carlos, no. What? Sorry, force of habit. It was actually Charles. Well, how the turntables. There are so many good. The fact that 4 out of 5 mechanics weren't even surprised at Ferrari. Sad.
That actually I found horrifying.
Right?
As a team, that morale is that low, that your driver has just DNF'd, and only one of you is like, looking upset. That's like a systematic issue problem.
Look, together forever. And it's Alex and Charles in 7th and 8th. This says, put me at a massive disadvantage. Red flag. You're in first, bud. You're in first, buddy, and it's a red flag. So, disadvantage? We're not sure. Me getting up with 2 hours of sleep just to see 2 safety cars and a red flag in the first 8 laps. Yeah, literally. This was such a crazy... The Spanish Civil War, obviously. Obviously. French workers deciding to collectively strike in 2023. Russell on fire, lap 1. Russell on fire, lap 19. There's so many good ones. Yeah, I gotta say, we'll just throw them all in because this was such a memeable race. But yeah, there's a bunch. We'll throw a bunch on our Instagram story. Lauren will insert a bunch of photos, but it was a really, I want to say funny race. It was devastating in so many ways. It was devastating
for so many teams, but as a fan, unfortunately, it was really enjoyable.
It was entertaining, if I do say so.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
So long, but really entertaining.
I enjoyed the 4 DRS zones. I liked that it gave us a lot of battles, a lot of overtake. It's great to see a lot of different teams find pace within their cars that originally they were worried about this year. And on that bombshell, it is time for us to end. We will see you next time, guys. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.